If you enjoy each day's edition of Just the Truth and you want to get healthy and lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Former President Donald Trump's attempt to delay a New York court ruling requiring him to pay the $355 million and barring him from conducting business in the state for 3 years was rejected by a Manhattan Supreme Court justice, the rogue judge that ruled against the former president to begin with, Justice Arthur Engoron. We have the details there. Joe Biden still scheming on how to spend more of our federal tax dollars. The president asserting that the Supreme Court could not stop him from canceling student debt, as he posted on social media telling users that this was an assault on democracy. The U.S. witnessed Intuitive Machines Odysseus lunar lander touchdown near Malapert A in the South Pole region of the moon last night. First time that we have sent a spaceship to the moon since the 1970s. I'm not one to typically really care about what CBS is doing, but the network's decision to terminate acclaimed investigative reporter Catherine Herridge has ignited a firestorm of controversy, and it's raised some very valid questions. In one of the most crime-infested cities in the nation, Chicago, the school board has decided to remove police officers from the schools, claiming that the officers did not make the school safer and that they made minority students feel intimidated.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
On our guest line this morning, Senator Tim Scott.
Thank you for listening to one of the best radio shows. Joey, God bless your leadership.
Joey, congratulations on your new show.
I just wanted to let you know that I always appreciate your perspective and your common sense approach to the issues.
You know what? If people like you keep telling us the truth, believe me, we're paying close attention.
Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Former President Donald Trump's attempt to delay a New York court ruling that's going to require him to pay $355 million, and it bars him from conducting business in a city that he has just made, that he has contributed very largely. That sounds like him, doesn't it? Very largely. to the skyline over the years. Some of the largest buildings in Manhattan. Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron saying that Trump's attorneys failed to provide sufficient reason for a delay. The ruling stems from a civil fraud case against Trump, the Trump Organization, and others who they do business with. The New York Attorney General's office, led by Letitia James, submitted a proposed judgment order based on Engoron's previous ruling. Trump's lawyer, Clifford Robert, claimed that the AG's office did not follow proper court procedure, made errors in the proposed judgment, and asked the judge to allow some time. The judge saying no. Trump and his co-defendants, including his sons Eric and Donald Trump Jr., now have 30 days to file an appeal. However, in order to appeal, Trump must first provide the $350 million plus 9% interest as collateral. James has stated that if Trump fails to pay, she is prepared to seize his assets, including valuable properties in New York City, to cover the costs. This lady has run amok. This lady, I don't know why anybody would want to stay in New York. Trump has consistently denied wrongdoing, of course, because there's not a victim here. The banks have already testified he repaid the loans. The insurance companies, they do their own due diligence. They're not going to accept what any potential insured is going to tell them. They're going to look into it, investigate it, come up with their own numbers. So you have a victimless crime. All we have here is a rogue attorney general who wants to make a point and a name for herself. What do you want to bet? She'll be running for governor of New York soon. Meanwhile, over at the White House, Joe Biden is still scheming on how to spend more of our federal tax dollars. The president asserted that the Supreme Court could not stop him from canceling student debt. It set off social media users for his assault on democracy, as they called it. And it really is. You got a defiant president who's saying, I don't have to do what the Supreme Court tells me to do. I want to cancel this debt, and I'm going to do it. I don't care what their rulings are. Yesterday, Biden spoke at the Julian Dixon Library in Culver City, California, where he referenced his efforts to cancel more student loan debt. He noted that while his student debt handout program was initially halted by the Supreme Court, he said its ruling didn't stop him.
Kamala and I ran to lead this country. We made a commitment to fix our broken student loan system. That was one of the things we both talked about in the beginning. Because while a college degree is still a ticket to a better life, that ticket is too expensive. And too many Americans are still saddled with unsustainable debt in exchange for a college degree. This plan is the most generous repayment program ever, and today we're doing it even faster and quicker than ever before. I'm proud to announce our SAVE plan. We are immediately canceling the debt loans for over 150,000 borrowers, nearly 6 months ahead of schedule. Starting today, we're canceling student debt for borrowers who are enrolled in the SAVE plan and have been paying student loans for as little as 10 years. This action will be a huge help to graduates of community college and borrowers of smaller loans, putting them back on track faster for debt forgiveness than ever before. This builds on other progress I've made in canceling student debt for close to 4 million Americans. This is kind of relief can be life-changing for individuals and for their families. And it's good for the economy as a whole. I promise you I'm never going to stop fighting for hardworking American families. So if you qualify, you'll be hearing from me shortly.
Oh, yeah, he's a real fighter for hardworking American families. He talks about the student loan system being broken. What's broke about it? You borrow money to get an education. You get the education, you get a job, and you pay it back. Pretty simple. His dismissal of the Supreme Court decision, which plainly said that his plan is unconstitutional, as you can imagine, has angered a lot of people. A lot of feedback on X. Let me just share a few of the comments from the Federalist. Senior writer David Harsanyi remarked on the irony, saying yesterday he was going on about how Republicans were going to destroy, quote, democracy. Real Clear Investigations editor-at-large Benjamin Weingarten agreed. We've been reliably told this kind of rhetoric is an assault on democracy. They're talking about, of course, his standing up and boldly saying he does not have to adhere to what the Supreme Court has ruled to be unconstitutional. He's above the Supreme Court. Twitchy's Doug Powers wrote, one of the nobody is above the law people is debunking that again. Townhall.com columnist Derek Hunter commented, Biden always sounds like death warmed over. Foundation for Economic Excellence editor-at-large John Miltmore summarized Biden explaining that he's happy to break the law to give away your money. Representative Mike Collins warned from Georgia, the decay of checks and balances isn't a flex. Former Ted Cruz advisor Omri Sarin noted, one striking thing about the political left is that over and over again, across literally decades, they act as if they believe they'll be in power forever. Unfortunately, they might be. That's why it's important. If you haven't voted already, if you didn't do early voting, you can't vote today. Yesterday was the last day of early voting in South Carolina. The polls will be open tomorrow, though, on Saturday. And you got to go vote. You got to let your voice be heard. A little history on this. Back in June, the Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that federal law does not allow Biden's Secretary of Education to cancel the more than $430 billion in student loan debt. Biden promised at the time that his administration would continue to push for his student loan debt relief. This week, he announced that savings on valuable education, he called it the SAVE plan, that cancels debt for enrolled borrowers who have been in repayment for at least 10 years and hold up $12,000 or less in student loan debt. Those with larger debts will receive relief after an additional year of payments for every additional $1,000 they borrowed. Let me sum it up for you. It's called vote buying. Yes, it's illegal to just ignore the U.S. Supreme Court, but I guess if you sit in the Oval Office, Joe Biden thinks that's okay. He can do that, just like his son feels like that he's above the law as well, just like his brother, James Biden, feels like he's above the law. The whole Biden clan think that the law does not pertain to them. But again, this is simple. He's running for re-election. It's called vote buying. Hey, young people, I will forgive those loans that you took out for your education, which allows you, as he said, to get ahead in life. And unlike what your mama and daddy taught you about borrowing money and repaying it, you don't have to do this. This is on the people of America. On the very same hardworking American families that he spoke of earlier. You agree? Is this a form of buying votes? Love to hear your take on this. Send me a quick text on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Am I missing something here? And for those of you who have listened to me for a while, you kind of know how I fall on this whole student loan debt thing. And I understand some people are struggling because of Joe Biden, because of inflation. But if you borrow money, you pay it back. It's just that simple. I've never gotten the argument that people make on, well, you know, they're young kids. They're struggling. They got they have a mortgage payment to make. They have kids that they have to educate. I get that. That's why you budget. That's why you plan. You don't buy a house bigger than you can afford. You borrow it, you pay it back. Well, what are they going to say to the bank about their mortgage? Well, you know, I just can't quite afford it this month. You know what happens there, don't you? You do that too many months, the bank's going to show up and want their house back. Moving on, the U.S. witnessed Intuitive Machines Odysseus lunar lander touchdown on the moon. It landed, we're told, near Malapert A in the South Pole region of the moon last evening. I can give you all the details in just a moment. First, let me talk to you about your health, about your weight. I know it's a little personal. Do you need to lose a few pounds? If you do, let me tell you the way to lose it and then keep it off so that we don't have this conversation again. It's called PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Dr. Ashley Lucas. She will change your life. She's changed many lives. You know, it has to be so rewarding for Dr. Lucas to be in a business like this that provides a good income for her family, but yet she helps so many people change their lives. She helped me. Getting close to 4 years now. This summer it will be 4 years. When I first was introduced to Dr. Ashley Lucas, she taught me about my relationship with food, what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. Because her program is based on the science of nutrition. She teaches you about food. This is not a fad diet. This is not a situation where you're going to lose the weight. She's going to disappear and you're going to gain it back. Had a conversation just yesterday with the lady who was asking me about PhD weight loss and nutrition and the secret to it. Because she said she had been on a diet before. She had lost weight before. But as soon as she came off of the diet, she gained it right back. And that's the key. Because this is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. If you want to lose the weight for the last time, call 864-252-4925. Set up your appointment either in Greenville, Asheville, Charlotte, Lake Norman. If you're listening to me somewhere else in the country, they can do virtual visits as well. 864-252-4925, online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. This marked the first American spacecraft that has landed on the moon since the last crewed Apollo mission over 50 years ago. Last time an American spacecraft touched down on the moon was in 1972 during the Apollo 17 mission. The lunar landed touchdown at 6:24 Eastern Time Thursday. This mission is part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative and Artemis campaign. Although the lander was believed to be on the moon, the signal being transmitted, according to NASA, the signal had been lost temporarily. And in order to get that signal, the crew needed to use a dish in the UK because the lander's transmission had been lost at landing. Nearly 15 minutes later, a faint signal was detected. Mission Director Tim Crane said, "We're not dead yet." He told the team that the equipment was on the surface of the moon and transmitting. A SpaceX rocket had carried this Houston-based company's Nova C lander. It is referred to as the Odysseus. From Florida, shortly after 1 a.m. on February 15th on a Falcon 9 rocket that departed from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. The launch unfolded after a lunar lander from Astrobotic Technology encountered propulsion difficulties during a mission back in January and failed to reach the moon. So the uncrewed spacecraft had been circling the moon about 57 miles above the surface of the moon since it had reached the orbit around Wednesday or so, I think. According to the reports, it had remained in, quote, excellent health while roughly 239,000 miles from the Earth, transmitting flight data and lunar images to Intuitive Machines Mission Control Center in Houston. NASA said in a statement that the instruments on board the lander will conduct scientific research and demonstrate technologies to help us better understand the moon's environment and improve landing precision and safety in the challenging conditions of the lunar South Polar region, paving the way for future Artemis astronaut missions. So we may send men back to the moon. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line. Call, leave me a quick voice message. Love to get your voice messages. Email's always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. CBS's decision to terminate acclaimed investigative reporter Catherine Herridge has ignited a firestorm of controversy, and it's raised a lot of questions. Questions that whether you care anything about CBS or not as a network, which personally I don't pay much attention to them, but you need to pay attention to this. Details coming up. Discounted Appliance Warehouse. If you need a new refrigerator, a new washer, dryer, new stove, maybe a dishwasher, then head to Pickens and talk to my friends, Kyle, Johnny, Jeff, the whole team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Appliances are expensive, and you need to get this right. You don't need to go to one of the big box stores where you ask questions and they look at you with that deer in the headlight stare because they don't know. Are you tired of dealing with the inexperienced sales people and staff at some of the big box stores where they can't answer your questions? Well, you're going to get a totally different experience at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. The team there, they're going to walk you through the warehouse. It's about 11,000 square feet where they, at any given time, will have 15,000 or more appliances for you to choose from. Quite often, you can buy it today, use it today. They have an award-winning service department, extended warranties. They've got you covered well past the sale, I promise you. I've experienced it firsthand for a number of years. They're also proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with up to a 7-year warranty on parts and labor. Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens and online at dawpickens.com. In the wake of her firing, which was a big surprise, CBS has taken drastic measures by confiscating Catherine Herridge's files, her computers, records, which included sensitive information on privileged sources, according to some of the reports. The aggressive action not only alarmed Herridge's colleagues, but also attracted the attention of the SAG-AFTRA union, heightening concerns over the sanctity of confidential sources and journalistic freedom. The situation took on an even more ominous tone, given that Ms. Herridge was engaged in pursuing stories, according to some reports, that were not favorably viewed by the Biden White House and even some of the Democrat power brokers in our nation's capital. One former journalist from CBS told The Hill that numerous employees, quote, are confused why Herridge was laid off as one of the correspondents who broke news regularly and did a lot of original reporting. One individual mentioned, I'd never seen a seizure of records from a departing journalist, and that the move had sent a chilling signal in the ranks of CBS. It should. It should send a chilling signal across all of journalism, if you can call CBS journalists. A former manager, speaking anonymously, of course, said, I've never heard of anything like this. They talked about the traditionally journalists exiting the company were allowed to take all of their files and personal office items, with the company even assisting in packing some of the personal belongings, and particularly notes and data of their sources. That's part of reporting, having your sources that come to trust you and you trust them. The manager criticized the retention of Herridge's materials as outrageous and a direct threat to the safety of confidential sources. Jonathan Turley wrote, a source within the union SAG-AFTRA confirmed that it has raised this controversy with CBS and remains extremely concerned about the effect of this action on journalistic practices and source confidentiality. The union believes this is very unusual and goes far beyond this individual case. It's a matter of principle, the union spokesperson said. It's a matter of serious concern. We're considering all of our options. These files contain sources who were given confidentiality by Ms. Herridge. The company is suggesting that the privilege of confidentiality and the material rest ultimately with CBS. And as a threshold matter, cannot be the case with regard to files that were generated during her long stint with Fox News, yet CBS appears to be retaining those files too. Herridge, who had previously worked at Fox News, found herself at the heart of a pivotal First Amendment controversy. This follows a directive from a federal judge demanding that she disclose the confidential informants behind her 2017 reports on an FBI investigation into Yangping Shen, a Chinese-American scientist. These reports, which were published during Herridge's tenure over at Fox, led Chen to initiate a lawsuit against the FBI in 2018. She claimed the agency had violated her privacy, but by leaking this information without authorization. In 2022, Ms. Shen sought to compel Herridge and Fox News to reveal the sources of the leaks through a legal subpoena. This was resisted by all of the sources involved, citing First Amendment rights. Herridge might soon face contempt of court charges for refusing to reveal the source behind her 2017 investigative report. This could potentially result in her being personally liable for daily fines of $5,000. I would say to Ms. Herridge, and this is not right. I will defend her right to be able to keep her sources confidential, whether she's working there or not. I probably have disagreed with more than I've agreed with her, but she is a pretty good investigative reporter. But this threat of $5,000 a day fines, I'd say welcome to Donald Trump's world, Ms. Herridge. Appreciate my new friend in Spartanburg, Kathy, for sending me the link to this story. I got more on Kathy in just a moment. On the Furman Ford text line, Christy writes, boy, I got a lot of text messages from you guys over the past couple of days, particularly from yesterday. I spent a good bit of time talking about the situation at the border. If you missed yesterday's episode, go back and listen, particularly to the portion on the border. I dug a little deep on that. That's I think it'd be episode 87, or just kind of search for it. Christy writes, they need all those people to take over America. She's referencing the millions of illegals that have come across the border in just over 3 years of Joe Biden. She says, how many came under Obama? Our country has been full for years now. The Democrats want all these to keep their policies in place. They're not affected by these illegals. They spend other people's money, not theirs. The taxpayers are being broken and can't afford to live themselves because of the tax money given to those who don't work and don't belong. Thank you, Christy. You know, when you think about this, you think about all the money that Joe Biden has spent on illegals. And then you think about all the money that Joe Biden is trying to give away via student loan debt retirement. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars. If we could just eliminate some of this, and if we could elect some Republicans who had the backbone to go to Washington, D.C. and stand up to this and resist further spending and start cutting spending and start really having a serious conversation about balancing our budget, we wouldn't have to work half the year to pay our taxes. Jennifer writes on the Furman Ford text line, hey, Joey, just heard today's broadcast, and boy, did you ever slam it regarding the southwest border. That's the best information I've heard in a long time. Thank you, Jennifer, and I know you do your research, so that's a compliment. She says, the whole show was great and informative. Thank you for being so thorough, and you asked the right question. How can we undo this deliberate destruction of our country by lying Joe Biden and his corrupt administration in conjunction with the get-rich-quick cartels? It's overwhelming to think about. She says, I know that Donald Trump would be the best person to attack this issue, and I hope that America is smart enough to put him back in the White House. But how is it possible to deport nearly 10 million unvetted illegals currently in this country? Plus, and God help us, how many more before we get Biden out of the White House? Jennifer wraps things up by saying, I wonder, since we know that Joe is not capable of being a Walmart greeter, much less the person in charge of running our country, could the White House be infiltrated by anti-American activists put there to destroy us? And Jennifer's right. There was some pretty good stuff, some numbers when it pertains to illegals that were pretty astounding as I kind of dug around on that. So again, if you missed yesterday's edition, or depending on when you're listening to this, I think it's episode 87 of Just the Truth. Go back and listen to episode 87 and listen closely to some of the numbers of illegals that are in this country. Michael writes on the Furman Ford text line, Joey, I think that if Donald Trump cancels the 80,000 IRS agents and turns them into ICE agents, that will definitely start the deportation process, but it's only the beginning. That's the money that will be saved on taking care of these people will pay for the ICE agents. That might be a good solution there, Michael. And what Jennifer and Michael and Christy and Pete and others who express their concerns about this, what they're talking about, and what I covered in yesterday's edition is the fact that, yes, Donald Trump will stop further illegals coming into the nation. Donald Trump, I'm convinced, will finish building the wall. But when you're looking at the numbers that we've seen come across the border with Joe Biden, and who knows what that real number is, 10 million, 12 million, 15 million. How do you ever put the genie back in the bottle? That was my question yesterday. As much as I have confidence in Donald Trump, can anybody literally find these people, round them up, and ship them back? Is it possible? That was my question, and that's what some of these texters are referencing. Pete says, Joey, simple reason for the flood of illegals. The Cloward-Pliven strategy. Wait till the mass demonstrations the 7 million would do. It will make the Summer of Love look like a garden party. Again, look at who is funding these things in South America. Roads lead back to Soros. He is funding the undermining of our laws, and the conservatives just wring their hands. And look into Biden's advisors, quote. Notice we never hear the names of his advisors. Faye writes, Joey, if Dems take the White House again, our country will return to life as it was in the early 1900s, if not earlier. No combustion engine cars, and if you can't afford an EV, you better have shoes with good soles. Small towns have no mass transportation, so good luck. And the EVs will create a strain on the power grid, so power will be iffy, meaning no heat or AC on a regular basis. The supply chain will be hardly in existence, but guarantee the illegals won't be bothered by any of this. We Americans are being replaced, so our country can have one party, king and all. Wake up, America, today. Go vote. Go vote. Susan says, look what I did to this done from Deanne, Democrat and all but named Nikki. She sent me a photo of an envelope she had received in the mail from the Nikki Haley campaign. She had written across it very boldly, return to sender, Trump 2024. Tony says, Joey, this immigration issue is intentional. It's part of the great reset that the demon rats have hinted at for years now. And A says they can be found. ICE needs to expand their force. First, hit all the sanctuary cities. Since they have the buildings full of them, that should knock down the numbers a bit. Appreciate your comments. Yours is welcome. 864-477-5639. Our text of encouragement today. And this is something that I picked out. I have not heard from our friend who's in the hospital in the last day or so. This is from Philippians, first chapter, 27-28. Stand firm in the one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you. This is a sign to them that they will be destroyed, but that you will be saved, and that by God. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-5639. I promised yesterday that I would share more about my visit in Spartanburg earlier this week when I met Kathy. Kathy is a loyal listener of Just the Truth. She texts quite often and sends some good stuff. Well, the article earlier about CBS, Kathy had sent that. I never met Kathy until this week, and I mentioned that I was going to be over at the Spartanburg election office. Kathy came by, and we were able to meet one another. Had a chance to talk to her, and boy, did she have some very complimentary remarks about Just the Truth.
For years, I listened to you on the radio before Mike Gallagher came on, and I loved listening to you and Mike banter back and forth before his show would come on. And it was just, I didn't miss anything on the radio, the two of you. And then when I knew that you were going to a podcast, I was like, oh, thank goodness I'll still be able to hear Joey. And because you just give me information that I don't get anywhere else, local, national, worldwide. I mean, it's just wonderful. And that you bring a spiritual part to your podcast and it just makes me feel good about the world when I listen to you and that your sense about you is just so kind and caring, and you're so nice. And Nana Hudson had something to do with that, I know, and your wife Peg has something to do with that too. But your podcast is just fantastic, and everybody should listen. And I wouldn't change a thing. Just do exactly what you're doing every single day. And it might be good though if we could pay you somehow so that it could help you. Maybe we could do that. We could subscribe somehow. But anyway, thank you. Thank you for what you do. You make my day every day.
Wow. What kind and generous words from Kathy. And that's why I do this. I have a blessed life, and Kathy read it just like Nana Hudson wrote it. Kathy brought up an interesting observation there about the paid subscriptions. That is a model that some people use. I've never really thought about it, but Kathy, you've got me thinking. From the email inbox, Caroline from Morganton, North Carolina says, New York, with its predetermined Trump verdict and outrageous punishment, is killing the goose that lays the golden egg. If I were a member of the Trump family, I would immediately pull all of my assets and businesses out of New York and move them to a state that is welcoming and fair. Thank you for your voice, Joey. Thank you, Caroline, for listening in Morganton, North Carolina. Again, your comments are always welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-5639. Emails at joey@joeyhudson.com. And one of the most crime-infested cities in the nation, Chicago, the school board has decided to remove police officers, the school resource officers, claiming the officers do not make the school safer and that they made minority students feel intimidated. I got the full story on that in just a moment. Are you looking for a new vehicle? You need maybe a reliable, good, pre-owned vehicle that you can trust? Look no further than Furman Ford in Lawrence. I love doing business with locally owned and run businesses, and that's what you find when you go to Furman Ford. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line with every transaction, and they take that very seriously. They'll help you navigate some of the great deals they have on their selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. If you need service on your vehicle, they can help you there too, and you're not going to have to wait weeks to get that done. You do not have to purchase the vehicle from Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford, Matthew and Jim Furman. You can look them up at FurmanFord.com, FurmanFord.com. In a stroke of genius, tongue-in-cheek, the Chicago Board of Education made a significant decision yesterday. They're going to terminate its contract with the Chicago Police Department, which will result in removal of uniformed officers from the city schools. This followed an 8-hour school board meeting, reflects a long-standing debate that really goes back into 1990s when police were first assigned to protect schools. You know, most people around the country are happy to have school resource officers in their children's schools. In some areas where maybe funding didn't allow it, they fought for it. In Chicago, they're now turning them away. During the meeting, various stakeholders, including teachers, students, and elected officials, voiced their opinions. Students expressed feeling intimidated by the presence of police in schools, while proponents of removing police argued that the officers disproportionately targeted minorities and did not enhance school safety. Now, who do you think is going to be running back to the police the first time a student gets hurt or there's an act of violence in one of these schools? And unfortunately, that's going to happen. The board's decision in favor of a new, they're calling it the whole school safety policy, aims to eliminate the use of school resource officers and will be presented for final approval this summer. If approved, and it's expected to be, the policy will take effect in the next school year, starting in the fall. The plan emphasizes reallocating funds previously used for uniformed officers to alternative safety measures such as restorative justice programs, youth intervention specialists, and mentoring initiatives. This decision follows previous efforts by the Chicago Board of Educators to centralize the authority regarding the presence of officers in schools. Wonder what's going to happen to these officers. I wonder if the city of Chicago will just be able to absorb these many police officers who will not have a school to go to, and I don't know if that means that they'll lose their job or what. The Chicago Teachers Union supported the move to remove police back in 2020. This aligned with the sentiments of students, parents, teachers, and staff who advocated for police-free school environments. Those same parents are going to be the first ones screaming the loudest when little Johnny is injured because there was no police officer around, or it took them a while to respond. According to some of the records released, it impacts a number of schools within the Chicago public school systems, oversees 646 schools totally, which serves about 300,000 students. This, of course, just sort of underscores the ongoing efforts to address concerns surrounding the presence of law enforcement in educational settings. Some have argued since the whole George Floyd thing that it's not a good thing, but I guarantee you, and think about it. Think about some of the unfortunate school shootings that we have witnessed when the officer, like the case in Florida, the coward was seen on video hiding outside of the school, not running in, not running towards the danger, protecting those kids. Those are the parents that will be screaming the loudest when something like that happens. Again, God forbid, but we know it will, particularly in Chicago. There'll be maybe not a mass shooting, but I'm saying there's so much crime already in Chicago. I would bet you if you dug a little deeper, maybe that's something I'll do. There's probably a lot of crime already happening in those schools. Hope you'll join the conversation. Your comments are welcomed, appreciated, loved. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Emails welcome as well, joey@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Appreciate you joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose that weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Join our mailing list. Just go to joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Of course, this weekend, tomorrow, a big day in South Carolina with the presidential preference primary. We'll have the results for you on Monday. I'd love to get your comments over the weekend, though, once we maybe we should do a special edition. I don't know. We'll think about that. But regardless, we'll be back on Monday. And as I have promised, and I've been sort of hinting, next week's going to be a busy week, a very special week. I've got some special content, that I'm going to share with you next week. So you don't want to miss a single episode of Just the Truth. And in fact, do me a favor. The way we grow this community that we are developing here is for you to send the link to Just the Truth to a friend. Share it with your Sunday school class. And by the way, I've got a new project coming up soon. We're getting ready to launch BOLO. Jesus is Coming. This is for our law enforcement friends, our first responders, firefighters, EMTs. It's going to be special for them. And it's going to be pertinent to anyone because we're going to talk about faith a lot. But my plan is to, rather than me talk, have others talking, interviewing chaplains and pastors and police officers, firefighters. So be on the lookout, BOLO, for this new project I'm working on. And maybe you have a police officer friend or a firefighter friend that you can pass that on to as well. Keep those comments coming, folks, and the emails, joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back next week. Hope you'll plan to be with us. Until then, Remember, God's got this. He's in control.